Hello and welcome to checking out 4th edition, Flames of War, the Red Banner, Russian sourcebook for the Eastern Front mid-war, 42-43. This is centering around Operation Citadel, or the Battle of Kursk, or Prokhorovka, depending how you know it as. So let's get started. The format is the same as the other source books that I have talked about. You can always check out the other videos that I have made for this. So it goes through, gives a little bit of background about the Red Banner, talks a little bit about the Soviet special rules, gives you a background as far as why are we here at this point in the war. Down below here you have what's going on in other places of the world, what other battles were raging in the desert, and if it was there at the desert, or in the Pacific, or in the Italian front, so forth. It also gives a little bit background of some of the Russian offensives that have happened, like Operation Rumyantsev. Okay, for example. So this is like some really cool reading. It gives inspiration to the reader. Okay, Operation Kutuzov. Okay, you have here a map that shows you, and again, this is you still got this history thing following right along, so it gives you an idea. The Dnieper battles, so this does carry on through December of 43. So there was life after Kursk, where the Germans basically pulled back behind the Dnieper River in order to form some kind of a defensive line, which is understandable. And the Russians came after them for some reason. Russians have the Know Your Tanks. There's a few little extra goodies added on since the enemy at the gates. The T-34s now have changed in that the turret design has been looked over and been worked on to make it a little bit roomier for the guys. In there we now have more of an influx of Lend-Lease. In this case we're looking at Valentines and the Churchills. We look at the Red Banner force, and there's a number of formations that the Russian player can take, like the T-34 Tank Battalion, the Hero T-34 Tank Battalion, which again, that is more experienced guys, but there's fewer of them. These were like the survivors, and they learned a few tricks. Motor Rifle, Hero Motor Rifle. Okay, the KV-1S Guards Heavy Tank Regiment, the Churchill Guards Heavy Tank Regiment, and then the Reconnaissance Company. So these formations are within this book. Now you have 5 formations over here that you get at Enemy at the Gates, which really focuses more around the fighting around Stalingrad at the time, including a mixed tank battalion, an early T-34 tank battalion, an M3 Lee tank battalion, rifle, and Hero rifle. Now, could you take these formations and combine it with this in order to play? Absolutely, you can. In terms of historical, you need to do a little bit of research on that. I am not so sure the early T-34s were there at Kursk. They could have been, since the Russians probably needed every tank that they can get. Moving on, we look at the 18th Tank Corps, gives a little bit of a background looking at the T-34 company. This gives you the stats of the T-34, which you can also get on the unit cards, but the advantage about the unit cards is that they include special rules, so you don't have to go thumb through the book back and forth. T-70 Tank Company, Valentine Tank Company. We have the 181st Tank Brigade, okay, which is part of the 18th Tank Corps, part of the 5th Guards Tank Army in July of 43. And again, this is a Hero T-34, so there's a bunch of guys there. They've survived. They're not as many in number. Okay? And again, you go through the stats of the T-34. 27th Guards Breakthrough Heavy Tank Regiment. Whew. Long words, huh? But in this case, we're looking at the KV-1S, which is supposed to be an improved version of the KV-1s, which the KV-1s, their armor was thicker, but they were slower and they were less reliable. The KV-1Ss were moving along nicely. But eventually the T-34s won out on that, in that regards. Okay, moving on. So again, you get KV-1 guards, so you can still get the KV-1 with that front armor 9 compared to the KV-1S with the front armor of 7. That's why the KV-1 is referred to as the poor man's Tiger tank, because of that armor. That makes it harder for the Germans to knock out. But when the Germans have things like Panthers and 88s and Tiger 1s and Ferdinands and Hornices, it makes the job a little bit easier. Rock, paper, scissors. Think about it that way. So here we have the 36 Guards Breakthrough Heavy Tank Regiment that's using the Churchills as their tanks here. And moving on, we have the 5th Guards Mechanized Corps. So this is where you get to see some combined arms here, and that works out fairly well. For that, we have the Motor Rifle Battalion. Okay, and again, it goes through, and what's really cool with these now, the way that they incorporated the commissar rules, is you do have the commissar figure, but now the motivation is one higher. So it's now no longer a question of, you know, doing things the old way in the previous editions, which there was a certain amount of dark humor to that. Okay. You'd have to be a Russian Strelkovaya player to understand the importance of commissars. Okay, for the Russians, the Maxim, the 82mm mortar, the 120mm, the AT guns, the anti-tank rifles, which were still useful against lighter vehicles. Not particularly useful against things like Panthers or Tigers. The 10th Guards Mech Brigade. There's another group. This is with the Hero Motor Rifle Company as well. Fewer in number, more experienced, but again, fewer in number. And again, same thing. Again, lavishly laid out. The 2nd Guards Motorcycle Battalion. This is their recon company. And again, they use the M3 White Scout cars. And then support units like flamethrower tanks. The Su-76, now instead of just being tank destroyers, they can now be artillery support. Same thing with the Su-22s. We did not see that in the previous editions. So now these guys might actually be more worthwhile taking. I don't know, the jury may be still out. Now we get to see the appearance of the Su-152, basically your cat killer, and the Su-85. These are tanks you do not, the Germans can't sit there and just thumb their noses at them, because they do hit pretty hard. Okay, what else do we have here? So now, of course, we have anti-tank companies. We also have the choice of 76mm guns or the 57s, which were more nasty against the armor. But the 76s, they were a divisional gun. I mean, there was more flexibility there for that. The Katyushas, of course, rocket launchers for support. Again, 122mm battery, 76mm battery, the AAMG anti-aircraft platoon, and then of course the Stormoviks. Hey, it wouldn't count unless it was Stormoviks, right? It also gives you, again, if you're a total beginner, this gives you a guide on how to paint the Soviet tanks, how to add some cool details in there, tells you what kind of colors that you get, step by step, and also shows you how to do your basing as well. And then last but not least, where do you go from here? They give you all these options here as how much do you want to expand your force. And with that, we conclude with the extent of German conquests in 1942. Hey, I hope this was a benefit for you guys. I think it's worth getting if you enjoy Flames of War, especially if it's 4th edition. There's some more details in here that don't necessarily show up in the other books. And like I said, you take care, have a good day, and God bless you.